Welcome to the Hymn of Ash and Echo. Before the story begins, a brief message. By decree of Adam, one of my earliest subscribers and the channel's crypt keeper, I wrote this story, as with everything on the channel. But the voice you're hearing is AI, a stand-in while I continue my voice acting training. If you enjoy these stories, consider subscribing and leaving a like. It truly helps the channel grow. Now, the hunt continues. This is the Kill List Saga, Episode 7, The Wrong Place. Bub purred on his chest, claws extending and retracting, biting into Haldric's skin. He didn't move the little beast. Both of them needed rest, even though Haldric hadn't slept a lick. Another starless night had passed. The moons had long since disappeared, the clouds swollen with rain. Dawn only sharpened the emptiness. Haldric lay on his back, the rushing of a small stream filling his ears as he watched the world turn. Watching the time churn, putting even more distance between him and the rest of it. Frozen in time, Grimvold had called him, and the god was right, though Haldric hardly saw it as a bad thing. His ancestors wouldn't know peace until the blood oaths were fulfilled, until the betrayers were dealt with, until the earth gorged on their blood. "Grow my pup," Grimvold's words echoed in his mind. "Take your place and live," he said. "What is this if not me taking my place?" he asked, eyes fixed on the dark clouds. "What is this if not me living?" The god disagreed, but what did he know of family and sacrifices? Something rustled in the trees. Bub sprang up, green eyes locking on the sound. Haldric turned his head, ears straining. The rustle came again. A rodent, by the sound of it, or another small animal. He studied the bush. The tiny branches jerked erratically. It was no serpent, nor was it a predator. Whatever it was, it posed no threat to them. Bub disagreed. The little beast bared his teeth, ears twitching, eyes narrowing. "Go get it!" Haldric sat up, and the little beast pounced. He hit the bush, and a stink mouse flew out of the other side, its brown tail flapping as it bounded away. "Bub, stop!" Haldric ordered. The pup turned to him, growling, eyes narrowed. "No, Bub!" The little beast sprang after its quarry. Haldric sighed, getting up, hoping the thing got away. The stink mouse shrieked. "Moons above," Haldric muttered, folding his blankets. If the pup dragged it back, the stench would cling to his pack for weeks. Bub returned, bounding proudly ahead, his prey dangling from his mouth. And with them came the smell. Rancid, rotten, and unbearable. The pup didn't seem to mind it at all, but Haldric did. Any sane man did. The things smelled so severely that their glands were used in stink bombs, were the main ingredient of them. Bub's jaw clenched, and he picked up speed, ready to retake his place at Haldric's shoulder. "No!" Haldric extended a hand, and the pup faltered, head cocking, eyes growing wide, somehow confused. "Good thing we camped by a stream," he thought, grabbing the last of his soap. "We need to wash you," Haldric said, leading the horses to the stream. Bub followed along on foot, the oversized rodent hanging from his jaws. Or he did until Haldric turned away. Bub scrambled up his leg, claws biting from calf to neck. He perched on Haldric's shoulder and dropped the stink mouse onto his tunic. Grimvold's paws, Haldric cussed, the smell wafting over him, forcing its way into his nose and mouth. Rot. He tasted pure rot on his tongue. "Now we both need a bath." Haldric spat bile into the stream. Haldric lowered himself back into the cold, rushing water, hating every moment of it. "I should have started a fire," he thought, rubbing the oily soap on his shoulder, neck, and hair. But the sleepless night and the stench got to him. He just wanted it off of him, and his clothes, and his pup. He glanced at Bub, standing on the shore and tearing into the rodent. "Leave it and get in here," Haldric called, but the pup ignored him, tearing up the brown fur with his teeth and claws. "Ah, don't eat the glands!" That too fell on deaf ears. Bub tore into the rodent's backside, right into the glands, and promptly vomited. Bub whined and growled at the dead thing, as if it were its fault that the little beast didn't listen. How could something be so good at hunting and killing, yet so dumb? Haldric rubbed the soap into his hair and beard, watching Bub tear back into the thing. With vengeance now, not even eating anymore, just tearing at it. Haldric dropped into the water. It battered his neck and head, washing away soap, stench, dirt, and blood, and some of the haziness the sleepless nights brought. Haldric stood back up, the wind rushing around him, his muscles jumping and jerking, almost spasming. "Fire, definitely," he muttered, his eyes searching the riverbank for visible threats, as his ears were useless, the whooshing wind and the rushing of the stream making sure of that. He saw nothing and stepped out onto dry, stinking land. The stink mouse might have been dead and torn to shreds, but its defense mechanism still worked as intended. "Come," he called to the pup. Bub licked his bloody snout, big green eyes studying him. "What?" Haldric asked. Bub placed a paw on his kill. "I'm not going to take it," Haldric said. No one will, he thought, watching the pup's eyes narrow. "We're throwing it away," Haldric said, reaching for the carcass. Bub growled. "Growl all you want. It's not coming with us." The pup lay down, whining, eyes growing wide as he looked up. Haldric shook his head and snatched the pup. Bub slapped him. Haldric blinked, staring at him. The little one squirmed in his hands and slapped him again. An open paw slap to the face, no claws, no real force behind it. Just a slap. They stared at each other, not moving, and Bub began purring, sticking his tongue out, and swung again. Haldric moved back. The swipe missed his head as he carried the little bastard into the river. The cold water hit him, and Bub shivered in his hands. "Next time, listen to me," Haldric said, dunking him under the water. He pulled Bub out, and the little bastard slapped him again. Was he trying to play? Haldric asked himself, rubbing soap into the gray fur, or was he expressing discomfort? He pushed the soaped-up Bub under the water and scrubbed him clean. A familiar sound broke through the whooshing and rushing. Haldric turned to the shore, eyes and ears straining. There it was again. Hoofbeats. Way too close. Grimvold's pause. He rushed out of the river to his pack and weapons. Bub growled, sniffing the air. Little late now, he thought, unsheathing his sayax and throwing his clothes on. But it was too late. The trees spat out riders, line after line, until the clearing groaned beneath their weight. Hooves churned mud, spears bristled like a wall of reeds, and every eye, spear, and sword fell on him. All 4 of them. Bub bared his teeth, drooling spit on the grass and vibrating with the growls. Haldric checked his rear. The stream at his back would slow everyone, but the raiders more. It could provide at least partial coverage. Could he make a run for it? He glanced at Bub, his pack, and the stolen horse. He and Bub might be able to get away. He discarded the plan and searched for another. They couldn't fight their way out of this, at least not directly. Haldric lowered the blade, eyes scanning the men for their leader. He found him, directly in front of him, a tall and bald man, with a curious smile on his face. "Fireless bathing in autumn," the leader said. "Brave." Haldric remained quiet, studying him and his men, their horses, banners, weapons, and armor. Patches of blue, green, and orange marred their banner and armor, daubed half-heartedly, as if by a careless hand. The leader dismounted, eyeing Haldric in turn, one hand resting on the brown wood hilt of his sayax. Haldric's eyes lingered on the thin, wiry spear shafts of Sivindr. The wood bowed like running water, curved as though shaped by the marsh wind. To an outsider, they might seem weak, brittle things, but he knew better. Sivindr would bend. It would strain, yet it would not break. Neither would their horses. War mounts, every single one of them. No hope of scattering them. The bald man studied Bub, the scar over the man's brow furrowed. The pup growled back at him. "Are we really to believe you are traveling alone?" Haldric shrugged, studying the raiders behind the scarred man. They were all focused on their leader, waiting for the smallest cue, ready to strike. "Nothing to say?" "What do you want?" Haldric asked. "Same thing as you, presumably." The bald man smiled, and the scar across his cheek and chin stretched, the skin growing taut. "Raid season calls to all." Haldric nodded, glancing at Bub. His whole body vibrated with deep growls. "Wait just a little longer," Haldric thought. "Where's the rest of your Stamm?" "I have none," Haldric said, eyeing the distance between himself and the nearest horseman. He could kill the leader before the others reacted. But what then? They will gut us before Bub pounces, Haldric thought, forcing his muscles to calm. Force and violence wouldn't and couldn't get him out of this. An Imperial man? The man blinked, eyes refocusing on Haldric. "No, you don't look it. Frighten?" Haldric nodded again, turning to Bub. The Bergtant cub really needed to learn what fights were worth fighting. "So do you," he told himself. "Easy, boy." Bub looked up, teeth still bared, green eyes as thin as slits. "Easy," Haldric repeated, and the beast finally listened, growls quieting, but the teeth and claws remained displayed, ready to kill. "That's an interesting little beast. It's not native to these parts, is it?" "Neither are you. Why are marshlanders here?" Haldric asked. "Oh?" said one of the men. "He has keen eyes." Haldric ignored him, eyes locked on the leader. The man's easy and relaxed demeanor didn't waver. His smile only grew. "Light a fire, draw the ale. We've guests to tend." Haldric's eye twitched. He wanted to refuse, but his gut told him this wasn't an invitation. It was an order, and the only way Bub and he would walk out of this alive was through diplomacy. He hated diplomacy. So much talking, so many meanings, endless posturing. "Stammlord Alarulf," the bald and scarred man extended a hand. "And you are?" "Haldric," he said, clasping it. The man's smile turned into a mischievous grin. "Haldric, eh? An old name. A hero, a godling, a Hochkönig, and you. Good company." "I could be any of those," Haldric said, lips curving in something that might pass for a smile. "Or all of them." He let the words hang like a dare. Survival meant playing along. Haldric remained standing, sayax in his hand, as the men around him dismounted, started a fire, and drew a tarp over the makeshift camp. He stood, still and unmoving, as one of the men tried disposing of the stink mouse, and Bub intervened. Man and beast stared at each other, and the beast won. The Stammen lifted his hands and backed away, giving his leader a curious look. Haldric beckoned Bub over, still not moving as they placed a chair for him, next to the Stammlord's fire and feast, facing the man on equal terms, as if such a thing was possible when in his camp, surrounded by his men, eating his food and drinking his ale. Not that Haldric would partake. "Sit, Stammlord Alarulf said, ale in his hand and a local woman on his lap. Haldric eyed them before shaking his head. Bub did the same, green eyes narrow and dangerous. "Why not? I prefer standing." "You distrust me?" The man sounded offended. "Yes," Haldric nodded. "You trust me?" Stammlord Alarulf's smile grew vast and dangerous. "No, but I don't have to, do I?" Haldric snorted. "This doesn't have to be adversarial, just a civil conversation between two men." "I prefer blades to words," Haldric said. "They are honest." "Oh, we lack honesty?" Alarulf laughed. "Well then, I vowed to answer any questions you might have honestly if you do the same." Haldric eyed him, then the woman. "If you please," the man said, gesturing for her and his men to move. "Speak candidly." "Let your second-in-command stay," Haldric said, taking the seat. "You are a smart one," said the second-in-command. "Have to be to travel alone," Alarulf said. "To be an effective assassin." Haldric didn't let the surprise show on his face. He asked for honesty, and he got it. "Ask away." "Why did you leave your lands?" Haldric asked, and Bub flexed his claws. They sank deep into Haldric's shoulder. "Raid season, I already told you." The man sipped his ale. Haldric narrowed his eyes. The man would only answer what was asked, and not what the question meant. Good, at least he knew that now. "Why come this deep into Drevland? Aren't you worried about your villages?" Alarulf nodded, as if Haldric finally caught on. "We made a pact, in blood. See these men over there?" He pointed at a skinny and sickly-looking man, a tall and angry-looking one, and a man who seemed to be asleep. "That's the blood. If any of my neighbors attack, their sons die." "And they have your sons?" Haldric asked. Alarulf nodded. "What of outsiders?" "My eldest is patrolling the lands, backed by most of the Schildheer and Adelbund. It's a good exercise for him," Alarulf said. "If he inherits," Haldric added. "True. Now that had been 4 questions." The man held up 4 fingers. "Now I get 4 of my own." Haldric shrugged. "Who are you?" "Haldric." Alarulf smiled, glancing at his second-in-command. "He is not as wild as he looks." "Neither are you, my lord," said the bearded one. Bub showed his teeth at the men. "True, true. Okay, Haldric, who are you really?" "I'm a man, bound by blood oaths and duty to avenge my family." "Murdered and betrayed," Haldric said. The man's eyes darkened. "By your own kin?" Haldric nodded. "How goes that?" "That is question number 5, Haldric said, placing a hand on Bub's back. The pup finally retracted his claw. "Well, look who is keeping count. I have a few more. Then it's your turn again." "Still not finished," Haldric answered. "I see. We know something of blood oaths. They are never finished." The man lifted his mug as if to toast to the oaths. Haldric remained silent, as that wasn't a question. "What of that beast on your shoulder?" the second-in-command asked. "I'm counting that as your question," Haldric said. "I found him outside a thin place." "Oh, and you adopted him?" "He adopted himself," Haldric said, and Bub bit his ear. "It's a strange creature," Alarulf said, studying Bub. "He almost looks like a bergtant." Haldric scratched Bub's ear and he purred. "Smart man," the Stammlord laughed. "Is that a bergtant cub?" "I think so," Haldric said. "I still have a hard time understanding what it was doing in East Drevland. And last question, are you trained in this?" The man pointed at both of them. Haldric opened his mouth, ready to avoid the man's question intentionally, but he stopped, eyeing both of them. That setup had been too obvious. Alarulf was playing him somehow. "That is an unclear question." "How come?" "I cannot honestly answer if I'm not sure what is being asked of me," Haldric elaborated, raising 5 fingers. "I won't count the last one, and the clarification." "Are you trained in discourse, negotiation, and diplomacy?" "Yes, but to which one? That will have to wait for your next turn." Both men laughed as if he had said something funny or clever. Haldric ignored them. "Again, what of the outsiders? And this time, answer the question I'm asking." Alarulf shrugged. "Be it outside Stemmen or the wild men on the other side of the marsh, don't come into our lands during the autumn raiding season. Too many diseases, too many sinkholes, and too many bloodsuckers." "Good to know," Haldric said, committing that information to memory. He knew way too little about the marshlands. "It is. If you need to traverse the marshes, winter and late spring are the safest." "Winter would be preferred," said the second-in-command. "Thank you. What are you really doing here?" "Now that depends on how much I can trust you," Alarulf said, his whole demeanor changing. "Haldric, named after the old heroes and kings, swear on your word sigils that this information will not be shared." "I can't. I have none," Haldric said, pulling his tunic down. "None?" The man frowned. "Then on your blood oaths." "I solemnly swear on my blood oaths that what we discuss here will not be shared with any enemies of yours or mine." "Good," Alarulf leaned back. "We are here to offer support in case of a—" The man glanced around them. "War between the Hofmeister and the Fenberg Stamm." Haldric blinked, studying the man. Swear on your word sigils that I can trust you, Haldric said. I swear it, on my word sigils and my Stamm, you can trust me. Good. Blutzeichen bound then? Haldric asked. The Stammlord is my mother's youngest brother. So you are part of the assassination plan? Haldric leaned back. Alardvald made a lot of enemies. You know of the plan? Alarulf asked. I do. I am also aware of its changes. And no, I'm not involved. How? I still have 2 questions to ask, Haldric said. Ask away. Good. Am I your prisoner? Haldric asked. No. The man smiled easily. We are parleying and exchanging information. Then I'm free to leave, no? Of course, we cannot keep you. The man trailed off, his eyes growing narrow and his mouth turning downward. Moons above, he muttered. Haldric smiled at them, getting up. I will take my leave then. I trust you will abide by the oaths sworn. Alarulf snorted, shaking his head. You didn't have to play it like that. You were always free to leave. Now that, Haldric said, extending his hand, is the lie you wish I'd believe. It was a pleasure talking with you. Likewise, Alarulf clasped it, his grip iron. Blades are honest, you said? Haldric nodded. Then take pride, Alarulf said, his grin widening into something dangerous. You cut me clean with words, an ambush and a blade both. He released Haldric's hand. Safe travels, until we meet again. Haldric inclined his head in a sign of respect and moved toward his pack. The clouds above finally broke, releasing the stored rain in one big and violent gust. Haldric mounted his horse, rain slapping his head and shoulders. That had been close, he thought, urging the stolen mount to move. He glanced at the camp behind him. Alarulf and a few of his men stood at the tree line, eyeing him. Will they let me ride off? Haldric asked himself and turned away. Horses neighed behind him. I should have asked for safe passage. Haldric muttered to Bub, pushing the horse into a gallop, trying to put as much distance between them as possible. Rain hammered down on his shoulders, his head, the stolen horse lathered and shivering beneath him. The world blurred into water and mud, a gray veil torn only by the horse's wheeze and the thud of hooves. Haldric risked a glance back, expecting the charge that never came. Nothing but trees bowed low under the storm, the hiss of rain on sodden ground, and yet, Bub growled. The sound thrummed against his shoulders and neck, low and steady, the little beast's green eyes fixed on the tree line. A faint sound echoed in the distance. Bub's ears twitched, and so did Haldric's. He felt eyes on the back of his head. He felt it in his gut. He was being hunted. Haldric glanced over his shoulder again. Again, nothing but pouring rain and trees. But shadows moved when the rain thickened. Torchlight winked and vanished in the rain. Alarulf's men had not let him go. They herded him like birds of prey, close enough to notice, never close enough to confirm, waiting, watching. Close enough to be unnerving, far enough to be unthreatening, he muttered. The irony settled deep in his chest. He scanned the forest around him, eye twitching, looking for the ideal ambush site, or a trap site. But no, that would break their truce, and Alarulf could attack. He cursed under his breath and drove the horse harder. Oaths had carried him this far, and he wouldn't break them. He wouldn't give them the excuse. Bub rose on his hind legs, sniffing the air, his ears twitching. What is it? He asked the pup. Bub bared his teeth at something ahead of them. Had they circled around them? Did they box us in? The road crested a low rise, and smoke met him first. Thick, greasy, tearing through the rain like a spear through cloth. Haldric rode through it, nose and mouth covered, eyes straining to see what burned. The glow then came, shining through the trees ahead, like a distant bonfire, bright and violent. They broke through the tree line into a man-made clearing and a burning farmstead up ahead. Roofs aflame, fire crawling hungrily across the wooden buildings. Raiders moved through the wreckage, their shouts carrying over the storm. He saw steel flash, heard the scream of a dying man, and a child's cry. Haldric saw Jotengrim's son in his mind's eye. He heard the boy's screams again. He reined the horse, jaw clenched, eyes scanning the farmstead. 15 men, 20 horses, and half a dozen bodies. Captors held away from the burning buildings. Bub's growl deepened. His scar began burning, his eye twitching. The scene before him was the same as the scene behind him. His home had burned once. His family was slaughtered once. But this was not his kin, not his fight. Haldric pulled the reins to turn away. Stay unseen. Stay alive. Bub leapt, claws digging into mud. A streak of gray fur and snarling teeth plunging toward the burning farmstead. "Bub!" Haldric called, but it was no use. The beast let out a high, piercing roar and sprinted. Haldric drew his bow, teeth bared as he urged the horse forward. "Stupid mutt!" He released the string. The first of 15 fell. Haldric galloped through the unharvested field, bowstring humming, and another fell. Bub pounced, claws gouge eyes, and jaws clamp shut over the man's neck. A man wept over a dead girl. He loosed another arrow and dropped the bow, drawing his sayax. Hofmeister's men turned to him, but it was too late. The horse hit one, his blade tore through another. Haldric didn't slow or stop. He urged the horse between the burning buildings, circling for another charge. Hooves trampled men, sayax cut through them, and Bub tore into them. Haldric pushed the horse around, deep into the ripening field, rushing for yet another charge. One of the men pulled out a scroll. Haldric pulled on the reins, trying to turn, panic washing over him. The horse slowed, but didn't turn. The scroll in the man's hand hissed. Air around him froze. 4 ice spikes forming. Haldric jumped out of the saddle. The sayax dropped and forgotten. They exploded forward. He hit the ground hard, rolling away. The ice spikes tore through the horse. Blood sprayed. The beast screamed. Haldric scrambled, grabbing his sword and charging. The soldier's eyes grew wide, and he pulled another scroll out. The sayax flew through the air. It broke through the leather armor. The scroll rolled out of the man's hands. It hit the blood-drenched mud. Unactivated, Haldric grabbed his sayax and pushed toward the captors. A woman got into his way. Her axe held low, eyes steady, feet planted. She was a killer. They sized each other up, and she charged. Her axe met his blade. His fist met her face. The woman staggered back, but 2 others rushed at them, taking her place. Haldric parried one strike, sidestepped another, drawing his knife. Bub jumped at one, claws tearing at the man's eyes. The other rushed him. Iron met iron again, and the man fell at his feet. But the others joined in, captors forgotten, encircling him. "Bub, back!" Haldric ordered, dancing away from an axe slash. Meeting a sayax with his own, the knife going in for the kill. The woman hit him from the side, her axe tearing through Haldric's hide armor, drawing blood. He staggered, his sayax looking for blood. It only found iron. Bub shrieked more than he roared before his teeth sank into a man's neck. Haldric let the pup do his thing, blocking and backing away into the burning stable. The chaos favored him. They rushed after him. That was a mistake. Haldric backed around a burning beam, the heat snapping at him, but it didn't matter. Not to him. Not when the alternative was 5 against 2. He dropped his oilskin and moved further back, letting the spare one fall as well. The Hofmeister men followed, mouth and eyes covered. Axes and swords swept left and right, helping them navigate. Fools, he thought, taking 2 arrows out, holding them over the fire. It leapt onto his arrows, hungry and eager. He left his bow out there somewhere in the mud, but it didn't matter, not at this distance. Haldric stepped into the middle of the stable, making himself visible and luring them in past his oilskins, past the threshold. He tossed the arrows with his hand. They pierced the skins. Dark oil sprayed outward. Then it bloomed. Men and women screamed amongst the crackles of fire. Haldric backed out, watching them fall, watching them still. Bub flew past, darting left and right, before disappearing in the weeds. Haldric watched him go. What could have spooked Bub? Haldric spun, only to see 3 men charge him. Haldric parried a sword strike, sidestepped an axe swipe, danced around a spear thrust, and rammed his blade down the swordman's throat. The second man didn't hesitate, his spear rushing in for the kill. Bub fell from above, paws wrapping around a man's head as the pup's teeth sank into his skull. The bone crack tore through the rain and fire as Haldric's sayax met the axe. Their blades met, and Haldric's knife flashed. The man gurgled, staggered, and fell. The farmstead eagerly drank his lifeblood. Haldric stood over the 3 dead men, eyes searching for any stragglers. There was one, a youth, maybe in his late teens, running through the fields. The weeping man was hot on his heels. "Bub, hunt the boy," Haldric ordered, and the beast bounded away, leaving him alone on a burning farmstead somewhere in East Drevland, searching for answers. And Mirhildra, the goddess of faith, smiled down at his bloody face. The tall, short-haired woman who had cut him stopped between the burning stable and home, barring his path. Axe still held loosely, eyes still sharp, feet still planted. And yet again, she charged first. Haldric sidestepped, dropping his knife and punching her. She took it, straight to the face, and swung the axe up. It whooshed past as Haldric stepped aside, then back into his preferred range. The sayax arching upwards, the pommel slammed into her chest, and she staggered, dropping the axe. Haldric pressed, pummeling her once, twice, thrice. She finally fell, blood leaking from her mouth, eyes still burning with bloodlust. He closed them with his fist. The woman dropped on her back like a corpse, beaten senseless. Haldric looked down at her, his body still burning hot with bloodlust. Dead, she was just another body. Alive, she might have the answers he needed. He hefted her over his shoulder and turned toward the captors. He cut the last child free and stood, eyes searching for Bub. The pup disappeared in the unharvested field, but he found the weeping man meandering back, his fists and face covered in blood. Good, he thought, turning to the stolen horse and the fallen scroll. Someone reached for him. Haldric's knife flashed, stopping at a slender throat. The woman froze, eyes wide and mouth agape. He lowered the knife, a snarl on his lips. How stupid could she be, reaching for him like that, after bloodshed? Haldric stepped back, sheathing his blade. "Be more careful," he said. I'm sorry," she said, still frozen in place. Haldric nodded. Thank you, my lord," she said, head bowed. "I'm no lord," Haldric said, reaching for his gear. The ice spikes tore through the saddle, broke the straps on his pack, and destroyed the hide stripes he had been curing. Haldric closed his eyes, his ribs finally beginning to ache. "Still, thank you," the woman repeated, coming closer. "How can we repay you?" Haldric studied his ruined gear, mind already calculating what he would need to fix it all, as well as his armor. "You are bleeding." She reached for him again, and Haldric sidestepped. "Stay back," he said, focusing on the scroll user and the discarded scroll. That would fetch a pretty coin. He could buy a horse, saddle, bags, and more, and still have some left over. He bent down, pocketed the scroll, and looted the corpse. He found 2 more scrolls, 3 gold coins, a dozen silver pieces, and oil skins. "Please," the woman moved back in. "You save us. Why are you so—" "I didn't save you," Haldric snapped, eyes searching for Bub again. "My pup did." "What?" Haldric waved the woman away, eyes locking on the bloody man. "Where is my pup?" The man blinked at him. "My pup? Where is he?" Haldric repeated. "That beast?" he asked, and as if summoned, Bub strolled out of the golden field, gray fur covered in red. "Good kill," he said. Bub pressed himself against Haldric's boots, purring through the blood. Then he turned, tail twitching, and padded into the golden field. Haldric followed his gaze. "Show me then," he said. Bub led him to the youth he and the man had hunted down. Now, seeing the corpse, it would be apt to say Bub hunted him down. Tore his throat out, quick and efficient. Haldric knelt, resting a hand on the pup's blood-matted fur. "Good boy," he said, and Bub melted into the touch, nuzzling his hand and reverberating with deep, satisfied purrs. Haldric allowed himself a moment to scratch the pup's ear and snout. Bub's eyes rolled back into his head, tongue lolling. "We have to get back," he said, walking back. But Bub went in the opposite direction, straight at the corpse's legs. He set his legs, sank his teeth into the dead boy's calf, and pulled, or tried to. His back and legs strained, but the corpse didn't move. Of course it didn't. It weighed at least 15 stone, and Bub barely weighed 1. Haldric watched as the pup struggled, finally understanding it was his kill, his prey, and Bub wouldn't leave it behind. Haldric shook his head, hefting the corpse, and heat flared through his gut and chest. Not strain, not the scar's familiar sire, something deeper, rawer. His body was catching up at last to the crash, the slash, the fire, and the smoke. Bub climbed him like a tree and took his place atop his biggest catch yet, riding Haldric like he rode horses. He rode him like a crown rides a Hochkönig's head, purring all the while. It was almost comical, almost laughable how absurd the pup was, and yet he didn't laugh. No, he lowered the carcass and sat, taking a moment to catch his breath, allow the burn to pass. But it didn't. Nor did the wound stop bleeding. Haldric looked at it, prodding it with his fingers. Pain shot through him like lightning, but other than that, the wound wasn't too deep, Bub noticed. The pup sniffed the wound, batted a claw at it, and began licking through the armor. Bub's snout scrunched up. He didn't like the taste of worked leather, so he growled and clawed at it, as if that would remove the armor and allow him to lick the wound clean. Haldric let the pup do his thing, his heartbeat rising. The heat grew, intensified, from a bonfire to a wildfire in his gut. Grimvold's paws, he thought. Was the axe poisoned, or was that the smoke? "My lord?" The same woman approached again. Haldric looked up at her, forcing his heart to calm. "The woman is awake," she stammered. He patted Bub's head and stood, breathing deeply, pushing the pain and heat deep down, where all his rage waited, and it would wait for a bit longer. Hildewyn and her beast of a brother weren't far off. His whole cheek twitched at the mere thought. His scar flared up again, drawing out the other heat, like an ocean surging up a lake. Haldric forced it all down, pushing forward. He needed to finish up here and get back to his list. His kin. The woman looked up at him, left eyes swollen shut. "You die here," he said simply. "That is decided, but not how painful it will be." She spat at his boots. Haldric sighed, taking out his hide tool roll. "Where is the rest of your Stamm?" he asked, holding the skinny knife to her toes. She glared at him. It looked pitiful, with one eye swollen shut, dried blood around her nose and mouth. But he broke bigger and stronger men than she was. The skinny knife sliced between her toes, and she screamed. "Your Stamm?" "Grimvold." He made another cut, then another. "Your Stamm?" "I have none," she screamed. Haldric blinked. That surprised him, but he had no time to be surprised. "You work for Alardvald?" She nodded. What was a Hofmeister doing participating in the raiding season in his own lands? That made little sense, but so did many things lately. This he could at least verify. Haldric grabbed the woman's hide armor and cut the straps off. It dropped like a stone, revealing a sea of scars. And no tattoos, at least none on her shoulders and neck. She screamed something about him being a beast. Haldric cut her tunic down the middle, revealing her tattooed chest to the world. Blue and brown word sigils crossed out with red and purple, and a brand mark. Haldric frowned, She was a Wordbruch who worked for the Hofmeister? How strange. You, he pointed at a boy of maybe 15. Go check for Wordseigels. How? The youth asked. Haldric pointed at the woman's chest. The youth nodded and walked to the nearest corpse. Why all of this? He asked her. She still screamed about him being a beast, about how she would bite his manhood off if he tried anything. Haldric cut a long gash across her abdomen. Blood bloomed, and she screamed more. I will not soil you, Haldric said. Now why all this? She finally cracked. Alardvald needed more coin, and he wanted to remove a nuisance farmer, but couldn't do it legally. So he planned to use the fog of the raiding season. Haldric nodded as she talked. That part was not so strange. It was part of the course in the Drevland Empire, but Alardvald went about it in the most unorthodox of ways. Where is he now? Haldric asked after she finished. Fenberg, the woman spat. Still? She nodded. When does he leave? He rested the skinny knife against her shoulder. And where to? Tomorrow, Osthofen. The word struck him like a slap. Haldric almost backed away. What were the odds of that? He glanced up at the skies. Somewhere up there, Grimvold was laughing. Or maybe it was Mirhildra, arranging the events so he could repent. You shouldn't have come here, Haldric said, drawing out his knife. I had no choice, she muttered. That's not true, he said. I had orders. Alardvald gave me another chance at life. You disobeyed once. You could have done it again. Haldric sliced her throat open. Blood poured over her exposed chest, down her pants, and into the drenched dirt. Haldric watched it collide and mix for a moment, his own blood flowing freely, unsure of how to process what had just happened. He was sure of one thing, though. Alardvald couldn't be allowed to live any longer. Why? He couldn't tell. Was it for the people of Drevland? Or perhaps, was it simply his debt to Jotengrim? His eye twitched again as he walked back to the dead horse, Bub on his shoulder. I have a debt to pay, he told his ancestors. An oath I broke. Then I will return on my path. You've just listened to Wrong Place, Story 7 in my Kill List saga. I release new stories twice a week, with the Kill List saga and the Collapse unfolding side by side. If you liked this glimpse into Haldric's world, hit like and subscribe, and go give the Collapse Dead Run a listen for some brutal zombie survival horror. Part 2 is coming soon. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.